It's fundamental to reestablishing a normalcy within our communities, that we have safe places for our kids to be so they can learn and grow and socialize and do all the wonderful things that children do in their elementary school years, and then the exciting things about becoming adults and getting into high school and then moving on to other endeavors within the community.
Okay, so that was BC Premier John Horgan acknowledging parents' concerns about sending their children back to school this fall. And today, his government announced that students will return to school 2 days later. It's going to be September 10th now, allowing teachers time to work out the logistics of how to run a school under a pandemic. No easy task. So to discuss this shift toward a phased-in approach, we're joined now by BC's Education Minister Rob Fleming, who is in Victoria. Minister Fleming, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you explain why you decided to make this decision, to move to this phased-in approach?
Yeah, there's really a number of reasons there. One is it was based on discussion with all the professional organizations that are part of our steering committee that is guiding our K-12 restart come September. We have administrative staff and district staff back working now in schools, working with the guidelines from the BC Centre for Disease Control, working under the restart plan guidelines from the Ministry of Education. Occupational health and safety committees meeting, all of that. But there are some staff whose first day really back on the job is September 8th. And for those local committees that are school-based, it's really important to go over the new protocols inside the schools, to look at the physical layout of schools, to keep kids in learning cohorts, and to explain to them in the latter part of the week, what we're calling the orientation week, around what COVID safety looks like for them and their families. It is different. This is the new normal we're going to have to adapt to. And really, we were hearing from a number of our stakeholders that an additional amount of time would help us safely welcome students back.
An additional amount of time, your list of things you need to sort out is pretty daunting, right? It's pretty extensive. Is 2 days going to be enough, do you think?
Well, as I said, the school-based teams are back on the ground working right now. They actually have to submit and have approved by the Ministry of Education by August 26th, the plans in school, but there are some employees, as I mentioned, who return to work on September 8th, and normally there are kids back in school on the same day. To have a couple of days where it's very oriented towards occupational health and safety, and that the new protocols are fully explained, equipment and supplies are distributed, and there's a new flow, if you will, inside of a school. Those are the kinds of things that staff have suggested would actually help to have a safer, stronger welcome back to school for the kids that will return.
I would suspect that in the run-up to today's announcement, you were hearing quite a bit from parents who have concerns about the whole process of going back to schools. I wonder if you can tell us what were the biggest issues that they raised with you, and how you feel the plan you rolled out today addresses those concerns.
Yeah, I think some of it is that, the information doesn't really become real until you hear it from your local principal and vice principal, your local school. That's at the heart of most people's neighborhoods and communities. And that will take a little bit of time. Districts are working on that right now. They're communicating with families. There are, of course, some families that have different circumstances. They might have an immunocompromised family member or child, and they're working with their districts to get an accommodation in those types of situations. Perhaps it's being enrolled in a distance learning program. So there's lots of options for parents to choose based on what their family situation is. Those are the kinds of questions that are causing anxiety, and we fully understand that. This is a very different time. We have to operate schools under an entirely different health and safety protocol. It requires the sort of collaborative approach that we've done in British Columbia to bring all of the professional organizations and education stakeholders, including BC parent organizations, to the table to sort of take the guidelines, animate them, and the learning teams on the ground are making them real in local schools.
One of the issues that everybody has to consider is mask use on the return to school. I know you've decided not to make masks mandatory for elementary school children. Some other provinces have done that, starting with children in, say, grade 4 and up. Why have you decided not to go with that option?
Well, based on the guidance from our provincial health office, what I should say, though, is that masks are going to play a significant role come September, and they'll be distributed to every student and staff member, and they will be required in some situations. older students using transportation services to and from schools. Also recommended in any common area where physical distancing isn't possible. We've also built our plan on some public health principles around what are called learning groups. So to have things like staggered recesses and lunch schedules and bell schedules and even pick-up and drop-off times requires kids that they remain in their basic unit, which is the classroom, but they also have another class that they may share outdoor time with and maintain physical distancing. But as you know, things happen throughout the day, and there are situations where our provincial health officer is recommending mask use, and we're providing that as well as other PPE for staff and students.
How do you think parents across the country view this, though? Like I know you have to make a decision based on the epidemiology of the virus in your jurisdiction and your health advice, but one province says mask, another province doesn't say mask. Parents are all looking at this and wondering about a mixed message. I mean, how do you think they respond to this?
Well, most of the plans in the provinces have a lot more commonalities than differences. And, you know, we've also looked to some Western European jurisdictions that had a full re-entry to school last spring that have done it successfully. We borrowed some ideas from them. We also had a restart to our school year in June and had a month of instruction at the end of the school year, which provided a lot of lessons which were valuable to our province. We had 91% of the teaching profession back in school working with students, which was good. I think it helped set us up nicely for September. But I am looking forward. We'll have a discussion with the Council of Ministers of Education of Canada. Every province and territory is looking to have a restart to schools. We have been in close coordination. Tomorrow we'll have a roundtable to look as we are within 4 weeks of a restart in most provinces. Some have slightly different dates about some additional things that they're finding.
You know, we can only make decisions based on the best data and the best advice and the best plans. But, you know, I've got a kid who's going to go back to school in September, and I feel like we're all part of this grand experiment, right? Because we don't know how it's going to go. What indicators are you going to be looking for in September to know whether or not you've made the right decision and whether or not you're going to have to course correct?
Well, I think the most important one is the daily updates we get from our Minister of Health and our medical health officer around what cases are looking like. We have had some outbreaks this summer. We've had a very aggressive contact tracing system that has been able to contain those. I think you've heard a redoubled message to 20 to 29-year-olds in particular. We've seen the majority of the uptick in cases in BC that they need to be safe. They need to be mindful of how to live responsibly under a pandemic. So, you know, the number one thing that will allow us to restart schools successfully, and you've heard this from the World Health Organization and the European Centre for Disease Control and our own provincial health officer, is to keep the transmission rate low. And then we have a bunch of layers inside of a controlled school site that will also keep staff and students safe.
Okay, Rob Fleming, thank you for your time and good luck. I know we all hope back to school goes well this year. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
That's BC Education Minister Rob Fleming in Victoria.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.